In some games, the use of trademarks is an effective way to promote products. This is not least common in simulators that target specific vehicles. Motorcycle Mechanic Simulator follows a similar principle. You can choose between different brands and make up your own mind about which bike is preferable, but the implementation of famous motorcycle brands is not just a commercial ploy, but it also goes along with what simulators are. A reflection of reality. Although in this particular game, the brands seem to be made up. As far as I know, famous models like Ducati, Harley-Davidson, Kawasaki or Honda are not represented in the game. Instead, the brands are, for example, Gizzy Motors, Texas Riders, and Urban Knights Shoppers. Maybe this is due to the lack of rights, I don't know, but the fact is that I have never heard of these brands before. I also tried googling a brand, and as a fact, I got pictures from the actual game. In Motorcycle Mechanic Simulator, the player is given the tools necessary to understand the basics of the profession. You disassemble, repair, assemble, and test drive a vehicle with the goal of creating your own mechanic empire. In this video, I discuss Motorcycle Mechanic Simulator 2021, a game now being released for the Nintendo Switch. Feel free to subscribe to my channel, I review new games every week. Okay, let's check out this game and get an idea how it feels on the Nintendo Switch. First, you have two empty hands, a workshop and a mission to help customers with their broken motorcycles. The workspace is quite limited, but no more is needed because the assignments are initially very limited. However, there is a very useful tutorial that takes the player through the steps required to complete the job in an educational way. And it's actually quite extensive and almost on the verge of overwhelming. It's a game full of moments and procedures. For example, changing a wheel is a process in itself. Take off all the brakes and all the parts that hold the wheel in place. Then use the wheel changer to detach the tire from the rim. Then you have to buy new products and machines and finally reassemble the wheel. There is a lot that needs to be taken into account, but thanks to the methodical tutorial, the process becomes quite smooth. But pretty soon, problems arise. We're talking about typical reasons why a game becomes unplayable. A bit into the tutorial, the game crashes. I tried restarting the game from the beginning, but with a similar outcome. It crashes continuously. It is not possible to save the game at this point, so you have to constantly do the tutorial from the beginning. In the end, I choose to skip the tutorial and start playing as if I knew what I was doing. However, I am pleasantly surprised by how easy it is to understand what needs to be done. Roughly speaking, this involves following a description of broken parts that needs to be replaced. Unfortunately, I soon discovered new problems. It's not possible to attach certain parts. It's a clear bug. However, I get the game to work again after loading the latest save, which means saving becomes a central factor in this game, solely to save yourself from bugs that can ruin your mission. If you go into the menu, you can get an overview of the mission assigned to you. But right now the mission is frozen against a black background, so there isn't much to work with. Normally there is the option to remove missions you don't want to do, but whatever button I press, I get stuck in this black screen. I then decide to test ride the motorcycle down in the harbor. I want to experience the game in a different way, which feels like a natural complement to having fixed the motorcycle. There are two camera angles, either directly behind the driver or a more zoomed out perspective. The problem here is that if you drive zoomed out, the camera doesn't follow the direction of the motorcycle. That is, if you turn 180 degrees, you drive blind and risk a collision. It's impossible to know what is in front of you. However, it works just fine to drive from a driver's perspective. The camera is much more responsive. Even in this part of the game there are problems. In front of me is a diagonal tunnel. I decided to try driving into it and landing on the ground. So let's see what happens. Nothing. I drove right through the containers. I tried to drive into the sand piles and cranes. Yeah, it's the same, drive straight through. It is clear that this part of the game suffers from clipping. Finally, I try to drive straight into the sea. However, here is a wall, so it will actually crash. After I finish the test run, I head back to my workshop, but the game crashes and I have to start from my last save, which is much earlier. I lose a lot of my progress, and it feels like the save files are generally corrupt. Sometimes I save, but if the game crashes, the last save file won't work. Instead, I am taking back to an earlier occasion, and I mean way back. It feels like I could go on forever, but this game suffers from so many problems that unfortunately make it basically unplayable, and it's a real shame because the basic idea of the game is actually quite interesting. It's a different kind of simulator that, if it had worked, could have amused all those who enjoy games with a certain degree of realism. Maybe this simulator can appeal to all of those who love to mess around with motorcycles, but the Nintendo Switch version just doesn't measure up at the moment. I have reported some of my findings to the publicist, so they will investigate what is going on. Personally, I think this is a fun and different simulator. Playing mechanic and learning a bit about how motorcycles are built can be seen as a lesson in how vehicles are put together. It's quite interesting actually. But right now, the game needs a major upgrade. There are a couple of things that make the game more dynamic. You can unlock a junkyard and buy spare parts. There is a skill tree where you can improve your mechanical skills, and a map where you can unlock new garages. There is also opportunity to test drive motorcycles on a professional racetrack. The problem is that I got stuck on the loading screen, so never got access to it. It's just a shame that the experience on Nintendo Switch is limited by the game's collective problems. If all the question marks are cleared up, then we have a completely different, durable and entertaining simulator to have fun with. Worth knowing is that the game is available on Steam, and maybe it's the case that the game works better on PC. I don't know, but I recommend holding off on a purchase until all the issues are fixed. This applies to the Nintendo Switch, but it might be worth seeing if it runs better on PC. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I review new games every week. Have a nice day. See ya!